Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book The Mist by Stephen King. This is actually a novella. I believe it was originally titled in like the Skeleton Crew collection that he did back in the 80s, but this is a novella by Stephen King. And I've had kind of a rocky road getting to Stephen King's books because I wasn't sure I would like his writing, and apparently I took the wrong route to getting to his book. So I started with The Gunslinger, which I did not care for at all. I really did not like the book. And after that, I was like, well, let me try his most famous work that everyone talks about, It. I read It and didn't really care for it. There were some moments in it I liked. There were some moments, but overall, it was so long and boring, it was like, what's the point? So that was that book. Then I was like, I gotta find a book I want to read. And one of my friends said he was going to read Misery at the same time that I did. So I did read Misery, and I really liked Misery. I gave it like an 8 out of 10. So it was a really good book. Not a favorite or anything, but hey, a Stephen King book I liked. And that was the end of last year. That was like October. And I've wanted to read more Stephen King. I just haven't really gotten to it. I just, haven't really gotten around to reading more of his because I've had other authors on my shelves. And let's be honest, Stephen King doesn't need my help sales-wise. So I finally decided, you know what? It's a novella. It's 160 pages. It's worth giving it a try. I'm ahead on my TBR, may as well get to it. This is supposed to be on the August TBR, but I'm way ahead in July, so I got to read this a little earlier. But I put it on the TBR, I read it in one day, 2 sittings, basically, and overall what I'm going to say is I really liked this book. In fact, I would say I loved this book until the last chapter. The last chapter ruined it for me. But we'll start out. This is a short novella, really short. It's about this small town in Maine, and this father and his son go with a neighbor into town to go get something from like the local food mart type place. I think it's called Federal Foods or something. And when they go in, this big mist comes into town, and there's these weird creatures in the mist that are like killing people. And so they have to figure out, are they going to stay in that food mart? Are they going to leave it? Are they going to get help? How will they get help? Are they going to fight the creatures? Like, what are they going to do? It's all about the terror that the people have inside that food mart. And it's a horror novel, so, there's a lot of people that just die. And it's a Stephen King novel, or novella. Well, it's not a novel, it's a novella. But it's a Stephen King novella, so I should have realized it would have the touchstones of Stephen King stuff in there. So, but seriously, I was loving this book. The horror elements with the mist and the weird creatures in the mist, I thought were excellently handled. I thought that the way that he minimally used them, but kept them at the forefront of everyone's minds. The way that the book is actually about the horror and not about, it's actually about this existential crisis with kids that are growing up. It's a horror book about the horrible thing that's happening. And so I like that. That's what I wanted my horror books to be. I'm not that person that wants the horror to be like a backdrop, and I want this literary fiction. I want there to be actual scary stuff going on. So in that sense, I think the King nailed that element of the book. I also think that he really stayed on focus throughout the book with keeping the story moving forward. Every chapter felt like it actually advanced the story a little bit going forward. So I was like, okay, there's not filler chapters. There's not like a bunch of chapters missing in the middle or the beginning. We'll talk about the end in a moment. But so far, up until the last chapter, I was like, everything fits. This is paced well. This is written well. I'm really liking it. There's stuff I didn't like. Like there's one throwaway like sex scene that's like 1 page. And I understand why Stephen King included it, and I even understand his argument. To me, it was incredibly distasteful. It was incredibly in bad faith. I think it was written poorly. I understand why he would say he needed to include it, because there's something with the characters and about fear and how our primal urges take over. That's what Stephen King's trying to say. I think that he's wrong about that theme, and so I didn't like that. But that's like a 1-page scene, and I can sort of move past that. But the book just was great otherwise. I really liked the way that people made decisions, how every character in this book that you're like following, they're all reacting in different ways. Some people, they're much more heroic. Some people are much more reactive. Some people are much more fearful. Some people are, much more, take the charge. Like there's a lot of different personality types, and I thought that Stephen King did a great job. And I understood the characters well enough that when they were talked about, I remembered them. But it's not like I needed to know their backstory or remember their backstory. I just understood who they were as characters. So in that sense, he nailed it. But the big problem with this book is the end of the book, which is the final chapter. Really, without getting into spoilers about it, it really feels like Stephen King just kind of gave up and just finished the story. Like he didn't actually know what direction to take the story. I don't think that he really... there's a couple of avenues with this. One avenue is that he actually just didn't know which way to take the story. He didn't know which direction would be the best. And so rather than pick one and, finish the story, he just decided just to end the story where it was and kind of leave things ambiguous and also just not give closure. To me, that is a bad way to write a story unless there's there are very few instances where ambiguity is a good thing, but almost always you should have closure. You should have a denouement. You should have a true end to the story. And this story doesn't. It just ends without the true ending, without a really good climax, a really good payoff. It's all promises and payoffs is the thing that Brandon Sanderson talks about. There's no payoff here. And the argument could be, well, Stephen King doesn't plot out his books. Well, maybe he should, because you need to have payoffs. And I know he can because I thought the payoffs in Misery were great. And I will say that in Misery, there's an element of ambiguity, but he snuffs it out. He introduces it just to put the tingle of ambiguity in the back of your mind, and then he says, okay, but here's how the actual ending is. And I loved that. But here, he doesn't do that. And so... Anyway, it really frustrates me. So that's one possibility, is that he just didn't know which way to go with it. Or another possibility is that Stephen King genuinely believes that these types of endings are good endings, and that's why he chose it. And if that's the case, that's terrible, because this is not a type of good ending. The third option is that he had a particular ending he would have wanted, but he was shying away from controversy. And so he just kind of, decided, I'm not going to kill off all the characters or kill off this specific character or end it in this way because I don't want people mad at me. It's Stephen King. The Ritual of Chud, he's not shying away from crazy endings or dramatic stuff or dramatic storytelling. So no, that's not his MO. So we are left with the first option that I brought up, which is that he just didn't really have a clue what his ending was going to be, and rather than actually sit down and write an ending, he just gave up on it. I know that was a rant, and I know that, I don't rant too much on here, but it's frustrating when you have such a good book, a book I would have rated like a 9 out of 10, maybe even higher. I was loving this story. And then he just kills his momentum, absolutely kills it, just drove it into the ground with that final chapter. It was so frustrating. And to the point that I'm just going to give it like a 7. The story itself deserves more until you get to the final chapter. And you can tell that that's a big reaction it got out of me, that I care that much about it. And in terms of enjoyment of the story, I enjoyed the story of The Mist more than I enjoyed the story of Misery. But at least I felt Misery had competence to it, and at minimum competently ended things and had payoffs to promises made. And The Mist did not. So in my ranking or rating system, I'm giving Misery a higher rating, even though I was loving every bit of this just about until the final chapter, which just drove it down a lot. So I still enjoyed the book. I still even recommend the novella because it's like 160 pages. It is a sit down and read it in a day. Even if you're a slow reader, maybe 2 days, but this is not a big commitment. And you could find it at a used bookstore, the standalone novella. It's worth getting to if it's used. I don't know if I'd pay $13 new. I'm not sure it's worth that necessarily, but it's worth giving it a try. And maybe other people won't feel that way about the ending, but I feel very strongly about the ending here. At least I'm going to remember the ending, unlike, this Gunslinger, which was just so unmemorable. Anyway, That's my review of Stephen King's The Mist, a novella from the Skeleton Crew collection. If you've read The Mist, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section down below. And tell me what next Stephen King book I should read. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.